Seth Smith says, Joe Rogan constantly pushes for multiracialism and anti-Western civilization at every chance he gets. Of course he does. That's what he's paid to do. The authorized are authorized specifically in order to undermine Western civilization. They hate Western civilization, they hate Christianity, and they hate America. Literally. Joe Rogan told Roseanne that there are online cults. I think Owen Vox and Stefan is who he's talking about. Well, considering that our followings are much, much smaller than, PewDiePie or lots of other people on YouTube or doing video and podcasts, I find it difficult to believe that's what he's aiming at. I mean, yeah, we may have 329 people watching. We may have, 5 to 10,000 who will eventually watch this, but it seems a little bit strange that they would focus on that as opposed to, 1 million people watching PewDiePie. But remember, they project. They always project. We're not a cult. The Bears are not a cult. It's totally ridiculous. But, Joe Rogan would like to have a cult. And so whenever an SJW attacks you, you know where they're coming from. You know what their weaknesses are. He's the one who's, from what I understand, he's the one who is running around advocating the use of mind-altering substances. That's a lot more akin to drinking the Kool-Aid than me telling you, yeah, you know what, you should really read Aristotle and Arian and the Bible. How can you combat the atheist argument that Christians are overrepresented as convicts? Easily. They're wrong. They're completely wrong. In fact, atheists are actually overrepresented if you define atheist as someone who does not believe that God exists, as opposed to someone who calls himself an atheist. I addressed this back in 2008 in The Irrational Atheist. But also it's somewhat difficult to prove in any event because the United States does not keep track of religion. I had to resort to the prison population of England and Wales. And furthermore, getting back to the concept of the Joe Rogan cult, I think we can all agree, no toe in Idaho, no toe in Ohio. Zach McCracken says, funny, it looks like Joe the Toe's ego is shaken by Owen. His whole clique of YouTube comedians are banned from mentioning his name. Of course he is. Because Joe Rogan has enough talent to recognize how much better Owen is. It's the same reason that Salieri was portrayed as being jealous of Mozart. They don't want to mention people. There's a reason why I'm sometimes referred to as Voxamort, because there are so many different little communities, whether it's in the science fiction world or in the comics world or whatever, that they absolutely refuse to even mention my name for fear that they will cause somebody to look at what I'm doing and then find it persuasive. John Yossarian wants to know if I need any help with lifting that Bible back on the shelf. Yeah, because the thing is that probably of every 4 Joe Rogan fans who visit Owen, at least 2 of them will continue to watch Owen, and at least 1 of them will turn against Joe. Mammoth Mike Milker says, most comedians are actually politically correct shills too scared of losing their careers to speak the truth. Well, of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? Owen was meant to serve as an example, and that's why the success of this tour was so hard for them to witness and so upsetting to them, is because Owen is proving that he doesn't need their approval, that he doesn't need their authorization. But most of them don't have the talent, don't have the genuine strength of followers. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the Bears because there are so many groups of seeming supporters. At best, their support is paper thin. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. You see these authors who are supposedly massively popular. Their books sell hundreds of thousands on Amazon through Kindle Unlimited. And you know what? You put a book out in print, doesn't sell. You do a crowdfunding campaign, nobody shows. And what you realize is that they're actually just creatures of the Amazon algorithm. Amazon is pushing some of its users to that particular author. But they'd never be able to even come out with a successful hardcover, let alone make a movie or anything. And that kind of brings us back to the point about the revolution will be atomized. We need to we need to not be these separate little cells. The cells have to exist on their own, but then in order to achieve anything, they need to come together and work together in a productive manner in order to deal with the inevitable heat and the inevitable attacks that come from the authorized. We will know that the next stage has been reached when you see the New York Times Magazine or the Atlantic doing some sort of piece on Owen. Or, for example, there will probably be, I would say, sometime in 2020 or 2021, there will probably be some sort of major hit piece on me, talking about, basically portraying me as some sort of spider in a web. Don't be fooled by it. Don't be, understand that it will happen. And so, Rod Breton says, I've heard of Instagram influencers with millions of followers who can't manage to sell 10 t-shirts. That's because what we mean by authorized is that they are basically being given fame, money, etc., etc. And a lot of it is not legitimate. It's not real. We've seen that. I'll give you an example. If you're a big politician who gets nominated for president, you will have a New York Times best-selling book. It will sell millions, maybe even tens of millions of copies. Do you think anyone actually buys those books and reads them? I have talked to probably 50 or 60 people who voted for Hillary Clinton. No one ever bought or read any of the books written by Hillary Clinton. Greta Thunberg thing, she doesn't have any actual following. She's just a creature, propped up. And when there are people who are actually genuinely popular, I think that Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson are genuinely popular to a certain extent, but they are also creatures. They make people offers. Do you want this? And then it's just it's just like with the rock stars. Why do you think they're all on cocaine? I mean, how on earth does the average rocker who has no money whatsoever, no job, and if he's a musician or a rocker, he spends all of his money on his guitars or whatever, right? How does somebody like that get hooked on cocaine? It's offered to them. The record companies use it as a way to keep them manageable. They use fame and money the same way. And the system with the social media system, Fozzie Bear said, even Hillary hasn't read the books Ghost written her name. She probably hasn't. I'm not kidding. She probably hasn't. Comey's book that was on the New York Times bestseller? Absolutely. Yeah, the Wanna Be a Member? Wanna Be a Member? Yeah, they did hit pieces on Mel Gibson's father before they eventually came after Mel. Yeah. Be kind of tough for them to do hit pieces on my father. He's been in prison the last, 11 years. It's It's probably a tactic, but it doesn't matter. Don't fear them. Don't fear those who can only kill your career. Fear him who judges the soul. Don't fear those who can only threaten your life. Fear him who judges the soul. It's said that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So fear God. But here's the thing. If you have a sufficient and a wise fear of God, there's not much room to fear anybody else. Yeah, and it was said a long time ago, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? It doesn't. So don't do it. Focus on the truth. Focus on life. You know, there's no joy that can compete with those magical moments with your children. There's no joy that can compete with those moments of sublime understanding that you have with your wife from time to time. And the thing is it's not the same as hedonistic pleasure. You know, there are, if I think about it, if there were like 3 moments in time that I could go back to, some of the most powerful and most beautiful moments are small ones, you know, small ones with my children or with my wife. And it's not the sort of thing that, like, you know, makes you crave it again and again and again. I still remember very, very clearly the first time one of my kids went on a long walk with me. And what I mean is that, you know, they were still walking, having to hold on to my hands. And I couldn't believe how far we got. And I can still remember the little stone staircase that we reached. And every single time I happen to be in that neighborhood and I see that little stone staircase, it just, you know, just the after effects, the echoes of that joy from years ago fills me. You know, what DMT or check or threesome or, you know, porn video could ever compete with that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You know, so that's why I think that it's so easy not to take the bait. It's so easy not to sell out, to the point that, you know, why would you sell that? Because those moments become part of your soul. That's the difference between hedonistic pleasure and joy. Joy becomes part of your soul. Pleasure becomes the corruption of your body. They're 2 very different things.